Howdy folks, how's it going? So this is one of my first videos that I've ever recorded inside, at least one of my spiritual videos. It was a raging blizzard last night here in Jasper National Park, Canada, and there's a lot of snow on the ground out there now, and it's supposed to be really cold. I haven't actually been outside yet today. I might actually go out there and do a little bit of exploring out in the trees there in the snow a little bit later, but for now I thought that I would, for a change, record a video indoors with better sound and not as interesting of a backdrop, I realize, but what the heck, something different. So first I will go ahead and just show the view outside, just if you're curious to see some nice white snowy looking trees. So here we go. So here's a quick scan of my very boring room. Definitely could use some posters or pictures on the wall or whatever, but I'm out of here in a week, so it doesn't really matter. Alright, here's the view outside. Looking out at a courtyard at the center of this apartment complex. As you can see, lots of beautiful, fresh, fluffy snow. And in a week, I will be on Waikiki Beach, Hawaii. Can't wait. Alright, back to the video. So the subject of this video is, how does an enlightened person live their life? So there is the Christian catchphrase, what would Jesus do? And the idea, of course, is to live one's life based on thinking about how would Jesus have dealt with this situation? What choices would Jesus make? How would Jesus have conducted himself, and seek to live accordingly? But in my view, then, this is really not the way to go about things. First of all, I don't believe in a ultimate state of enlightenment, which kind of implies a, you've finished the program, you've finally reached that ultimate state of enlightenment, that's it, you're done. There's nothing more to learn, no more to grow. I don't think that we ever get to that state of being, that there's always more to learn, to evolve, to grow. So there's nobody that you can pick and say, this person is perfect, even Jesus, in my view. Maybe I'm wrong, but it is all perfect. And yet, within that perfection, there are choices that could have had better outcomes and choices that could have had worse outcomes. And obviously, we want to strive to make the choices that have the better outcomes for ourselves and for others. But I don't believe in this idea that Jesus, for example, was perfect compared to everyone else, that we're all flawed human beings, but Jesus was a shining example of absolute, complete perfection, and he never made a choice in his life that wasn't the absolutely perfect right choice in that moment. I don't think that's the way it works at all. That's not the idea, is that there is a ultimate perfect right choice that you should be making in your life in any given moment, and then you have to figure out what that perfect right choice is. That is such a constricted way of living one's life, and that is a very fundamentalist, moralistic view of things, that there is the good and the bad, there is the right and the wrong, and you should make the right choices. So the other problem with this, especially as it relates to Jesus, is who knows what Jesus was thinking. We have scant historical evidence about Jesus. Certainly we have some great examples of things that Jesus did that can teach us lessons in our lives of how we might want to choose to approach things. You could, rather than saying what would an enlightened person do, how would an enlightened person live their life, you could say, how would a spiritually awake and aware and loving person conduct their life? And that's certainly valid to try to keep that in mind. But ultimately, I don't really think that this is the way to go, because this doesn't necessarily give you the opportunity to discover the truth of your own being. Now, I do like the concept of trying to be the best person that you can be, certainly. I like Ralph Smart's idea of be the greatest version of yourself. Throughout my life, I've always just kind of had this idea of, I just want to be the most awesome person I can possibly be, given, you know, what I was given and what I have to work with, and how can I just, you know, get out there and just, you know, do really awesome, amazing, hopefully inspiring things, and be as kind and considerate as I can be, and just, you know, grab life by the horns and make the most of things as much as I can. But in my view, then, it is not about trying to conform to somebody else who you see as an example, and thus the way to be spiritually awakened is to pick someone who you choose as a spiritually awakened person, and then try to be like them. That doesn't give you the opportunity to find out who you truly are. We all clearly have flaws and have made our mistakes, and in my quest to be the most awesome person that I can possibly be, then I've made my share of bumbling screw-ups and whatnot that didn't fit into my conception of this awesome person that I wanted to be. But that's inevitable. That's the way it's going to go. And I think that this has been a really wrong-headed idea of spiritual gurus getting locked into a way of being in which they seem to have no flaws, seem to be perfect, are always calm and peaceful, and then lo and behold, how often does it turn out that they have some sort of a sex scandal or money scandal or you know, violence in their background that you know, completely contradicts the presentation that they have been giving towards people, and so this speaks to the division within ourselves, which could be equated to the conscious and the subconscious, of having our conscious presentation, our conception of who we are, and then beneath that, in the shadows and the darkness, then is a reality, as it were, of ourselves. And when people create a division within themselves, then in order to be socially acceptable, they will give a presentation of who they want to be. And then meanwhile, they may very well be doing things that from their subconscious, being driven to do things that completely conflict with that presentation. A great example of this has been in the news recently, which is Bill Cosby. And this is a really freaking disturbing story, which is that dozens of women are coming forwards claiming sexual abuse and rape and all kinds of stuff at Bill Cosby, the guy who is just this fun, lovable TV character and comedian. And you know, he hasn't been convicted of anything, but when dozens of women are coming forwards accusing you of something, I'm not going to believe for a second that this is some sort of a strange conspiracy of women who just out of the blue decided to take down Bill Cosby. I mean, that makes absolutely no sense. I have to assume that there is truth to these allegations. And so this really speaks to the division within our culture, that we have set up a standard of how people are supposed to be. what is acceptable versus what is unacceptable. We have religions that are very divisive and black and white and saying be good and don't be bad, and then there's a list of good things that you should do and how you should be, and then a list of bad things that you shouldn't do. And so this puts people into a constricted mode of being in which they feel as if they have to hide parts of themselves. And this perpetuates the imbalances within people and within our societies. And so this idea of how would an enlightened person live their life then, so I will admit that this is kind of a deceptive title to this video because I think that is the wrong question. The question really should be, who are you really? And to make one of the main purposes of one's life that of figuring out who are you really, rather than seeking to conform to society's expectations, rather than seeking to conform to spiritual teachers and gurus' presentations, which oftentimes just makes people feel worse about themselves. You see somebody on TV giving a lecture on YouTube, and they might look like they're so perfect and righteous and have it all together, and they don't seem to have any real problems, and they're so kind and considerate, and that is a narrow little slice of that person's life. That does not represent the totality of who they are and how they conduct themselves. And so throw out this concept of trying to be something, trying to live like Jesus. And certainly there is much to be learned from the examples of others, the inspiring figures who have accomplished great things and who have done wonderful things for the world. But even Mother Teresa, the figure who is idolized for being an example of selfless service to the world, wrote in her journal, apparently, this was revealed after she had died, that she had never really felt a genuine connection with God. So here, Mother Teresa, one of the predominant religious figures of the 20th century, saying that she never really felt a connection with God. I'll just say, not to try to be arrogant or sound superior here or anything like that, I do very much feel a connection with God. When someone is being such a supposed shining example of spirituality, and yet in private they're saying, I just feel this darkness inside, that I feel no real connection to a divine creator. What does that say about how they're living their life, and what was the truth of their presentation? To what extent were they simply living a life based on what they felt that they should be doing, how they should be living, how they should conduct themselves? And to what extent was that way of living actually creating more division within themselves and resulting in a disconnect within themselves, which seems to be the case with what Mother Teresa was expressing. And personally, I think that there is a huge problem with this whole concept of selfless service as a requirement for enlightenment. And I've been planning to do a video on this topic. Maybe I'll just do it today and go into that further. But I think that this concept of selfless service is completely and totally misguided. And perhaps that was the case with Mother Teresa was she was stuck in this mode of being of I should always be giving of myself to others, and that myself doesn't matter, that it is about others in the world, and so deny oneself and focus on helping other people. And I think that is a major spiritual pitfall.